this morning is from the Gospel of John, the 14th chapter, verses 5 through 14. This passage takes place during the Last Supper. And Jesus has gathered to have a final meal with his friends. And they don't know exactly what's going on, but they have an inkling. And they're worried. Jesus offers them words of comfort. Thomas said to Jesus, "Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way?" Jesus said to him, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you know me, you will know my Father also. From now on, you do know him, and you have seen him." Philip said to Jesus, "Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied." Jesus said to him, "Have I been with you all this time, Philip, and you still do not know? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, 'Show us the Father'? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and that the Father is in me? The words that I say to you now, I do not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe me because of the works themselves. Very truly I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and in fact will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. And I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If in my name you ask me for anything, I will do it." May God add a blessing to the reading of the Word. So what do you want for Christmas? It's the season where we are all asked by loved ones to make our list of what we want for Christmas. And I'm hearing a lot about what some of the people in my life want for Christmas. I'm sure that many of you are as well. Although I should say that now that my children are grown, their lists are short. But you know, I found as the shorter the list gets, the more expensive the items on the list are. You may have noticed that yourself. But do you remember, those of us who have children, remember the long, long lists we would get from our children? I remember my son Danny, he's 20 years old now, but when he was a child, he would go get the circulars from the local toy stores, and he would look through them, and he would say to me, "Oh, I want this one, and 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 I want this one," and I would eventually start to say to him, "Danny, maybe you would save time if you tell me the ones you don't want." But he never took me up on that suggestion. I get asked that question myself. What do you want for Christmas? And as I get older, it's harder and harder to answer that question. Maybe, again, you have that same experience. My mother and I, when my mother was alive, we would every Christmas go through this ritual together. In addition to wanting to know what Wendy and the kids would want for Christmas, she would also press me to tell her what I wanted. And I was never prepared to tell her what I needed because I didn't really know. I didn't have any real thoughts. And so I would say, I don't really need anything, Mom. And that was never good for her. She would say, "Oh, but I need you to tell me what you want for Christmas." And I would just kind of make up something just to satisfy her. "Well, I suppose I could use some new socks." And that was never good enough for her. And she would say, "Oh, Tommy, what do you really want?" So again, what do we want for Christmas? What do we need? When we get through wishing for toys or settling for socks, what is left when we really think about what we want and need for Christmas? What is our deepest and most basic need? I want to suggest to you this morning that aside from our physical needs of food and shelter and clothing, our deepest need is for God, is to see God. And there's a reason for that. Because we were made by God to be in relationship with God. And ultimately, there is this longing within us. We're wired this way to want to have some kind of connection with God. God created us that way. Some people put it this way, that we have a missing puzzle piece in our lives. And there's only one piece that will fill that one missing that will fill that one missing gap, and that's God. Or St. Augustine put it this way. He said, "Lord, you have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in thee." Isn't that beautiful? Lord, you have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. There's something that we do need. Even when we don't feel like we need anything for Christmas, we need to see God. And because there is this desire to see God, every culture that has ever existed, every human tribe or group has found themselves asking these deep questions about life and about the nature of reality. They ask, why? Why something and not nothing? Why is there something in my heart that wants to see something deeper than just what's right in front of me? And every culture has, in some way or another, tried to answer those questions. The world as a whole is on a God quest. It might not say that in their words, but we all are on a God quest. We were made to be that way. When I get tired of toys, what do I really need? Let me see God. One of the first questions that kids ask, they start asking this around age 2, and they ask it over and over again, and they say, why? You say something, well, we have to go to the store. Why? It's time for bed. Why? I'm feeling sad today. Why? They ask that question over and over again. It's an incredible question, isn't it? It's not what happened or where did it happen. A child of a certain age wants to know why it happened. A child senses that there's got to be a reason for anything and everything they see around them. In fact, this is one of the greatest examples of the reality of God, is that we are wired from the time we are little to ask why. And we have this sense that there is a cause and effect relationship at work in the universe. And we see the effects, and we assume there has to be a cause. An unmoved mover, as the philosophers put it, that began everything and set all of this effect in motion. We sense that there is a cause, and we see the handprint or the fingerprint of God everywhere we go. And God has left his footprints and fingerprints all over creation. Oh, Tommy, what do you really want? The older we get, the more we want to experience what really matters. It's not enough to just know there is a creator in the abstract. I want to experience this Creator. When you are a child, it's not enough to know you have a parent. You want to see the parent. You're not comfortable until the parent is in your view. Moses had an intimate relationship with God, and he said to God, God, I want to see your face. It's not enough that you have given me the 10 Commandments. It's not enough that I can know your plan. I want to see your face. And that's the cry in our hearts. It's about a relationship. About love. I don't know about you. I've never experienced love in theory. Right? The love that I've experienced that has shaped my life, that has sustained me through my parents and through people in my life is very much embodied, isn't it? It's connected to a face. Just yesterday we were at a meeting at the church, and Eunice came in with Fifi, and we were all trying to get Fifi to smile at us, you know. All he could get was Fifi would just cry whenever last would see him. But I didn't do much better. He still just looks at me. I say, Fifi, I baptized you, you know. But then Diane looked at him, and the biggest smile broke out on his face. It was so beautiful. And even before Diane said it, I remember, Diane, some of you know this, she was there when Fifi was born. And her face is imprinted in his memory. And so he will never forget you. As soon as he sees you and hears your voice, right along with his mom's, he smiles. See, that's the relationship that God wants to have with us, that we are imprinted in God's heart, and God is imprinted in our hearts, and when we see Him, we light up. We want to see the Father. We want to see God. Now, the good news, there's always good news, isn't there? Sometimes you got to go to the bad news before you get to the good news. But the good news this morning is that this is what Christmas is all about. Christmas tells us that we can see God's human face in that little baby that is born in a manger, and that baby that grows up to be the Son of God. We need an image, don't we? We need a face to connect with and relate to. And Christmas is all about seeing God's face in the flesh. When Philip says to Jesus, Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied. And Jesus says this, those who have seen me have seen the Father. You want to get a picture of what God is like? All you got to do is look at Jesus. And we'll be satisfied. That need that we have. That's one way we can understand what Isaiah was going through, getting at when he prophesied so long ago about a child who would be born, a son who would be given, whose name would be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. As Christians, we believe that Jesus is God's human face. We believe that Jesus is the one who is that child who is given those names of Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God. Do you want to see God? Christmas tells us the way we see God is to look at Jesus. In this Christmas, we celebrate the birth of this one who we believe is, in fact, the mighty God. You want a picture of God? Look at Jesus. Now, if Jesus really is God's visible picture, it is different from the picture that we human beings have been drawing for all these years. If Jesus is the fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy, if he really is the child whose name is called Mighty God, what a picture that paints. Because if you and I were to paint a picture of how we would have guessed this mighty God was to make his entrance into our human world, I am guessing that our pictures wouldn't look anything like that first Christmas. I think they'd be a whole lot more glorious, don't you think? We know the story, but we forget how humble, how even wretched the beginning that Jesus had. We know the story of Jesus' humble birth to a teenage Mary in a stable, but we sometimes divorce ourselves from the wretchedness of what that was all about. What does it all mean? What does Jesus' birth tell us about mighty God that no one else in history has ever demonstrated? You see, Jesus is the antithesis of what most of us imagine when we use the word mighty. In other words, if Jesus is mighty, that means we're going to have to redefine what we mean by mighty. Amen? Jesus shows that God is a God who serves. So we understand that part of being mighty that we learn from Jesus is to be able to serve. That's a powerful thing to be able to serve. And it's a mighty thing, Jesus tells us. We see in him that Jesus shows us a God who serves. That this is not what mighty looks like to the world. It's not what power is about in the world. Think about the whole manger scene. God didn't avoid real life when he sent Jesus. In Jesus, we have a God who experienced diaper rash. Imagine that. If it were up to me, I would have avoided that part of it, right? I mean, I forget what diaper rash must have felt like. I had it like you all have had it. But when I say my kids, when I saw them have it, I said, that looks painful. That looks like that hurts. So I would have avoided all of that, but Jesus didn't. You see, Jesus went through some of the worst that you and I can go through. God had a choice, and God chose not to avoid real life. The way that God chose to enter our world, he chose to come into a situation of poverty, a situation that was not about comfort or experiencing nothing but the finest. Jesus would not have been on lifestyles of the rich and famous, my brothers and sisters. It wasn't a Donald Trump kind of thing. There were no gold faucets in the manger. Max Lucado puts it this way. He says, for 33 years, Jesus would feel everything you and I would ever feel. He felt weak. He grew weary. He was afraid of failure. He was susceptible to wooing women. He got colds. He burped. He had body odor. His feelings got hurt. He got tired, and his head ached, just like you and me. One of the truisms that I'm reminded of by certain bumper stickers, you don't see them quite as often as you used to, but it says something to the effect of dung happens. You've seen those? Dung happens. And it's true. I like you, I've experienced some dung happening in my life from time to time. But Jesus, well, from the first moment of his birth in a barn, he was surrounded by this stuff. Dung happens, and it happened to Jesus. That tells us a lot about what it means to be mighty God. Jesus shows us a picture of a God who doesn't avoid pain, a God who doesn't seek comfort, a God who is among us as one who serves and who walks with us. Why Jesus? He's unlike any person who ever lived. He totally redefined the word mighty. In the face of Jesus Christ, we see that the mighty God is a God of grace. Grace, which means the free gift of God's love and forgiveness. A pastor friend of mine told me of visiting the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. And while they're there, they took a half-day journey into the jungles to the Mayan ruins of Chichen Itza. And there at these Mayan ruins, they were shown what they were told was a pit of sacrifice. It was about 45 or 60 feet deep, it seemed to them. And you could walk to the edge of this pit. And as you did, you were invited to imagine the religious ceremonies that the Mayans would hold there at this pit, where they would sacrifice human beings into that pit. And when archaeologists uncovered this Mayan city, they found all kinds of human bones at the bottom of this pit. Folks who had been sacrificed to their gods. When you look around the world, this is a common trait that was practiced throughout history. In many cultures, this notion that the gods were angry and we needed to appease them somehow with human blood. And even some Christians, we have this notion that we've just got to die for the Lord. Which, you know, if it happens, sure. But what we need to understand that the message of Jesus is that Jesus paints a different picture of a God. A picture of a God who does not demand the sacrifice of people, who instead sacrifices himself for you and me. A picture of a God who does not demand our perfection, but who gives his perfection to us. A God who does not require us to be righteousness, but gives his righteousness to us. We see in Jesus a God who loves us even when we have messed everything up. We see in Jesus a God who doesn't hang out with the beautiful people, but is drawn to broken people. The focus of Jesus, the focus of his mission, were those people who were outside the acceptable boundaries of the religious institution. He crossed all sorts of lines that he wasn't supposed to cross, according to the Pharisees. He crossed the lines of gender when he included women in his circle. He crossed the taboo lines of race when he included Samaritan. That's our Jesus. That's our mighty God. What a picture that is. It's not the picture we would have drawn, is it? We couldn't make this stuff up if we tried. But it is the picture that we have from the one who was both fully human and fully divine. Looking at Jesus, we see God. We see God's human face. What a wonderful thing that is. God comes up close to us in Jesus Christ so that we can take a good look. And even if we can't fully see, we can hear, we can feel, we can know, and we can take comfort. Max Dupree had a daughter who gave birth to a premature baby who weighed only 1 pound and 7 ounces. She was immediately named Zoe, which is the Greek word for life, which I think is a great name. Zoe. She was given only a 5 to 10% chance of making it. This was a few years ago. They've learned a lot since then, but back at that time, that child was very much at risk. She was placed in a neonatal intensive care unit with 2 IVs, 1 in her foot, 1 in her navel. She had a feeding tube and a respiratory tube. She had monitors on both sides of her tiny little chest. Her top things all off. Her biological father had deserted her mother a month before Zoe was born. The nurse told Max that he needed to be the surrogate father to his granddaughter. He was to come in to the hospital every day, scrub up and rub Zoe's body, legs and arms with the tip of his finger. The nurse said to Max, while you are caressing her, you should tell her over and over how much you love her, because she has to be able to connect your voice to her to your touch. And he did exactly what he was told, and by God's grace, this little Zoe lived up to her name and is a healthy teenager today. Amen. God knows what that nurse knew. He knows how fragile and precarious our human life sometimes is. And how, if we're going to make it, if we are going to survive and thrive, we need to be touched by him and told how much we are loved by him. as the mighty God, Jesus, comes close to us so he can touch us and tell us that we are God's beloved child. And we're going to make it. He who has seen me has seen the Father. That's what we need this Christmas, isn't it? Do you want to see God, hear God, taste God? Get to know Jesus. And you will see the face of the mighty God. And while what we see will surprise us, it will also satisfy us to the very depths of our hearts. What do we really want for Christmas? We want to see God. And God has made that possible. Through Jesus our Lord. Amen.
Amen.